Good morning and welcome to Valley Views. I'm Glenn Edison, your host, and we want to say a special thank you to BTC Fiber for sponsoring our program. And today we have with us T.A. Smith, the minister of the Bethel Church of Christ, and we want to talk to him today about some of the things that he and his congregation and probably many congregations throughout the valley have gone through during the COVID-19 coronavirus, and we want to ask him a few questions concerning that. So, T.A., welcome to Valley Views.
And thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Speaking of the COVID-19, we want to ask you, how did that impact the congregation there at the Bethel Church of Christ?
Well, as far as the illness itself goes, I don't think we had any real cases. However, obviously, it changed the way we had to do things. In the beginning, when we first started hearing about this, I'm kind of embarrassed to say now that I don't think I took it seriously at first. I mean, we've been through the flu, we've been through the Zika and Ebola and West Nile and so many other things. I didn't take it serious, and we just continued to meet there for a few Sundays. But then obviously seeing the president doing a news conference every day, the governor doing a news conference every day, and finally Governor Lee just basically said, hey, Governor Lee is a religious man himself, and he said, I know this is important to the churches, but it'll be better if you guys don't meet. And so we looked for ways that we could still stay connected without actually assembling everybody together at the church building. Some of our younger men said, hey, why don't we just, we have a Facebook page already, why don't we just stream this thing live on Facebook? And most people have it now, have access to Facebook. They can at least sit at home and watch. We started handing out the prepackaged communion for folks to use at home. And we just went through, there would be 4 or 5 men at the church building, one working the camera, one the sound, the other guys going through every phase of scriptural worship, including the singing a song, doing the message, the Lord's Supper, prayer. We were still doing all of those things. It's just that we weren't all at the building anymore. And we really were, or at least I was surprised at the response and how many people were watching. And in fact, it's been so positive. We have actually ordered some permanent equipment to put on the wall. And we are planning to start streaming our morning worship service probably every Sunday.
Well, good. So while there were only just a few of you there at the building, was it well received by the congregation so they could watch it?
I think it was, and people liked being able to at least do that. It's not the same.
Right.
And we hope to get back together, have everybody back together very soon. It's not the same, but I do believe it was well received. And one thing that really amazed me is that, people will let you know they're watching. People in other states, people who had valley connections, who don't live here anymore, were watching.
Well,
and including my sister who lives down in Middle Georgia. And that made us feel pretty good. Again, it's not as good as assembling together to worship, but under the circumstances, we were pretty pleased with the way it went.
Well, how many weeks did you go with, or have you? I should ask you, have you started back to having services?
Well, we have on a limited basis. Beginning at the last part of March, we started with the live stream. Went all the way through April and the first part of May, and did not assemble at all. And then as things began to certainly not back to normal yet, but some of the restrictions were being lifted. We started having two services, one in the morning and one in the late afternoon, and just asking folks to, choose one. And when you get here to service, whether you come at 10 a.m. or 5 p.m., try to practice social distancing. We're still using the prepackaged communion, but at least people are back at the building. We're hoping that very soon we can just get right back to normal and have our regular service and everybody coming at the same time together.
So you were out about almost a couple of months without having regular
service. Absolutely.
Streaming.
Last part of March, all through April, and about half of May before we had anybody back at the building gathered together.
Well, how has that affected? And I hate to bring this up, but like the contribution. I mean, I know the church has bills,
Mm-hmm.
and that continue.
Mm-hmm.
Has that hurt financially?
I've got to say, and I've talked with Kelvin Lane about this. Kelvin is an elder and also our church treasurer, and he has just been amazed at the response. People have found a way, even when we weren't meeting. They would send it in the mail, drop it off in the church office. People would come down on Sunday mornings when we were ready to do the live stream, and they would pick up their prepackaged communion and leave a contribution.
Well,
and it really, I won't say it's exactly what it was previous to this, but it's been really close. And I've been surprised and very pleased at how our congregation has responded to that and making sure that they have given their contribution. I've been really pleased with that.
Well, and I've said this before, maybe this pandemic was an eye-opener for a lot of people, and it allowed people to do some things they weren't doing before that, like in your case with doing the Facebook Live
Mm-hmm.
and getting that message out that way.
Mm-hmm.
You can reach people that you weren't reaching before. So maybe a lot of I know just on my Facebook page I see a lot of different congregations doing Facebook Live.
Absolutely.
More than they used to.
Absolutely. I think certainly, Glenn, congregations have had to do things differently, and because of that, they have learned some different things, such as the live stream. Like you said, Bethel had never done that before, and I know I can think of a number of other congregations in the area that had not been doing that, and now they are, and I believe a lot of them will continue to do it, and while, again, we don't want folks to get too used to that.
Right.
Sitting on your couch and just sipping coffee and watching.
Yeah.
They need to assemble once we get back to normal, whenever that will be. If we are assembling on the Lord's Day, they need to try to be there. So it's not the same. However, it's going to allow us, if for some reason folks just simply can't come, illness or some other thing, they can still watch. And who knows, someone who might not have been hearing biblical messages at all, who knows who might be watching.
Right.
So, and that's good.
Yeah, I was thinking too, primarily like those that are shut in.
Absolutely.
Maybe those who've had surgery and are confined to home for temporarily.
They can watch. They can watch.
all watch.
At the end of December last year, I had pneumonia myself, and I wasn't there on a Sunday morning, and I watched the live stream from another congregation over in Chattanooga. I watched their live stream, and it wasn't the same as being at Bethel, but at least there was something. I could sit there all by myself with the blanket, wrapped up in a blanket, and watch. And
Yeah.
that was a good thing. That was good. Absolutely.
Well, and I'm sure that of all the activities the church does, I'm sure that affected all those activities as well, as far as getting out. And
oh, no doubt, no doubt. Bethel has the prison ministry, the jail ministry. We are involved with over at Memorial. Different churches are in a rotation taking food to the ICU waiting room. We're involved in that. And I have been going to the nursing home for a Bible study every Tuesday for several years now, along with just my regular visits, our shut-ins, going to hospitals when people are in the hospital. And all of that has been shut down, every bit of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand why we can't do those things. You know, the hospitals won't let me in. The nursing home folks, back at the beginning of March, they said, "We're sorry, but don't come back until we tell you to." Yes. And again, you and Ethan are involved in the jail ministry yourselves, and I know you haven't been for a while.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll be able to resume those things soon, but those things are out of our control. When they tell you not to come, you can't come. And so those things have just basically been shut down for at least a couple months.
What about other programs, like your outreach to the community, things y'all do for the community? And
well, again, it's just that you're not supposed to be around people. You're not supposed to go in and see the folks who are shut in at home. And those, as a matter of fact, just yesterday, what I've tried to do as a substitute, it's not as good, but it right now it's the best I can do. I've just been trying to call people and stay in touch, and text messaging, but that sort of thing. Talked to 3 people yesterday. In fact, one of the gentlemen who has been shut in for a long time, and I haven't been to see him during all of this. I've talked to him on the phone a couple times, but he told me yesterday, he said, "Hey, come and see me this week. Just sit across the room from me." And so I'm going to try to do that. And so slowly I think we're going to work our way back into those things. But it has definitely affected it for sure.
So more cards and phone calls.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, that was another thing I had to mention about the hospitals. You couldn't, I know probably like any other church congregation in there, you probably have people that have been in the hospital, have had surgeries,
oh,
been
yes.
sick.
Absolutely.
And some of them pretty, not just sick at their stomach, but sick.
Oh yeah.
And
even their families couldn't go in with them. The one time, 2 times that I have been allowed to go in is when someone was seriously ill, critically ill, and they, the family wanted me to come and talk with them and pray with them, of course. They decked me out in the gloves and the gown and the mask and everything, and they let me go in for a little while and pray with them. But other than that, I've just been, hey, don't come. And so,
yeah. Well, that's kind of sad. I know there's been many cases where families couldn't get in there. Yeah. And they're in there by themselves.
I've actually done a couple of funeral messages, and it's been so strange to me because you think of a family has lost a loved one, and people are going to be gathered around, and people are going to be hugging each other and that sort of thing, and it's so strange when you meet there at the cemetery. That's all you can do. You got a couple of family members sitting there in front of you, and everybody else is scattered all over the place. It's strange, man. It's strange, and it's been hard. It's been tough.
Well, what do you think are maybe some of the positives out of all of this?
I hope that it has been. I know you're not supposed to get political, but I hope it's been a wake-up call for our country. That people will see what we really did have and want to get back to it and understand that. I hope I'm not out of line here. You may have to edit this. That we need God in this country. We need God, and I hope people will see that and understand that. And I hope this has been a wake-up call for our nation as a whole. And again, as we've already discussed, churches have had to learn to do things differently. The live stream, for example, which is a positive. And I think a lot of congregations will continue to do that. And again, there might be people watching who otherwise would not have any kind of church connection. And as you mentioned, our sick folks, our shut-ins, they can still have a connection now, connected to, they can watch. Every Sunday they can watch.
Well, I know when I had my liver transplant a few years ago, I was able to watch online some services while I was out of pocket with my transplant, so that helped.
That is definitely a positive, I think, for sure. We at Bethel are going to continue with the live stream, and that definitely is one of the pluses that has come from this.
Well, other than not being able to get out, are there other negatives you might see?
The one concern that I personally have is, I guess every congregation has a few folks that you're kind of just hanging on to by a thread. You know, they come sometimes they don't. I fear that those people won't come back to church. I'm concerned about that. And again, I don't want people to get too used to watching on their couch at home.
Yeah.
If it's the Lord's Day and everybody is assembling together, they need to try to be there. And so if I have any concerns, I would say it is that some folks will just slip away from church altogether, and others will get too used to watching at home.
Well, I look at it as it's the fellowship that they miss.
Every person who professes to be a Christian, I think, they need to be together with other members of the church and shaking hands and hugging necks and rubbing shoulders and worshiping together. That's, in my mind, that's what keeps you encouraged. And if they're missing that, then you worry about them.
Yeah, because I know I've missed people that you get acquainted used to seeing.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
and,
for sure.
So,
for sure.
And you know, I like to see everybody. You know, I want to see. And matter of fact, the other day I saw some small children at church, and I thought, man, you've grown.
I did the same thing. I saw Charles Ray and Michelle's 3 children, and it just seemed like they'd grown 6 inches since I'd seen them. I just couldn't believe how big they were, and so I'm the same way. I agree with you on that.
And, well, I'm like you. I hope sooner that we can get together and get back to.
I don't
normal.
believe it'll be much longer that we'll be able to meet again at Bethel. At least, maybe with some rules. If we can get that permanent equipment we were talking about, we won't need the camera stand sitting right in the middle of the pews, and people will be able to use that space to sit. Some folks are already over in the kitchen area. And if you set your chair just right, you can see the podium and you can see the song leader, the prayer leader, the preacher. You can see those things from the kitchen. The sound system goes over there. And what we're planning to do is we're going to put a screen. We have an enclosed pavilion just outside the door there. We're going to put a screen out there, and you'll be able to see the stream even out there. And so if folks really want to, if they're just not ready to come back in and meet with everybody in the auditorium, they can sit out there in the pavilion and see the whole thing.
Well, that's great. That's great.
And I don't think that's far away.
Well, good, because like you say, it's caused us to think in another way.
Absolutely. And in many ways, that's a good thing. I almost had to reinvent ourselves. Not reinvent what we're preaching and teaching, but the way we do things. Some of the changes have been positive.
And I'm sure at Bethel, as well as other congregations throughout the valley, it's been pretty much a struggle for everybody, and everybody's gone through a lot of the same struggles.
Sure. A lot of places are. I've noticed their preacher is standing out on the porch with a microphone, and people are sitting there in their cars.
Yeah.
We haven't done that, but people are just inventing ways to come to church, and so people have just had to find other ways.
Well, use that creativity, I guess.
Absolutely.
Well, TA, it's certainly been good to have you today, and
thank you
appreciate
again.
you coming out. And because what we wanted to do is get out to people some of the struggles that some of the areas have had. Last week it was with Pete Swafford with the struggles with the school system.
Mm-hmm.
This week with you and some of the struggles with the church, and we're going to try to get some other people that's been affected and talk about how they were affected.
Right. That's great, Glenn. That's great, and I appreciate this program. I watch it on the Telephone Co-op channel a lot. I check to see who you're interviewing this week, and so thank you for having me.
Well, we appreciate you, and we appreciate BTC Fiber for doing the program, because they're a big sponsor of ours, and they do many great things
Absolutely.
Not only for this program but throughout the valley. And
Absolutely.
They're super and big leaders in the community, both here in Sequatchie and
Absolutely.
Well, TA, we appreciate it, and thank you very much. And
Thank
with
you.
that, we'll call it a day.
Okay, thank you.